How to fight a probation revocation. Hi, I'm Jeff Hampton with the Fulgham Law Firm. Maybe you're facing a probation revocation and you're wanting to know what are your next steps. What can you do to fight the situation that you're in? By the way, if you wait around to the end of this video, I'll also provide you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Now, let's say you're facing a probation violation charge. Let's first break down this whole idea of probation. You need to understand what your rights are first by understanding the type of probation that you are on. The first type, there's really only two types of probation. You are either placed on a deferred adjudication probation or a straight probation. Now, these types of probations are important because if you plead to a straight probation, it is immediately a conviction that is permanently on your record, but your actual punishment is capped to the amount of exposure time that you agreed to on the plea. I'm going to give you an example. And this is important if you have a revocation. You want to know what your maximum sentence is. If you were sentenced to 2 years in prison, but let's say you were sentenced and it was suspended for 5 years, you are now on a 5-year probation. If your probation were to be revoked, the maximum amount of time you could spend in prison is 2 years, okay? Because that's what the actual amount was. 2-year sentence placed on a 5-year probation. So your punishment would be capped by the amount, by that initial sentence that was suspended, okay? So what happens is that's important. Let's talk about deferred for a second. You at least know under a straight probation what your cap, your maximum sentence time would be. On a deferred adjudication, it's a little bit different. On a deferred adjudication, it's not immediately a conviction. That's the whole point to it. You have not been convicted of the crime. However, let's say you are placed on a deferred adjudication and you end up facing a revocation proceeding. Now at that revocation proceeding, you could actually be sentenced all the way up to the maximum punishment level allowed under the law for that crime. All right, that's really important because here's the thing. Maybe you've been informed by your probation officer that they're filing a motion to revoke your probation. Did you get that call? Maybe you heard it and now you don't know what the next step is for you. When we look at this, people call me all the time and say, well, what can I do if I'm facing this warrant? Am I going to be able to get out of jail? Is there a way to stay out of jail as we fight the case leading up to the hearing? Well, here's what happens. First of all, if you've been placed on a deferred adjudication or a straight probation and the probation officer is claiming that you have violated the terms and conditions of that probation, there are a few ground rules that you need to be aware of. First of all, if you've already pled guilty and you're on probation, you no longer have the right to a jury trial. It's just that simple. So with no right to a jury trial, what you say, why? That doesn't make sense. I have people call me all the time. I wasn't originally guilty of this. My attorney talked me into taking the deal, or I didn't think I had any other choice. The problem is this, under the law, you have already agreed to a plea deal. So as a result of that, you only have a right to a hearing in front of this judge to fight your probation revocation. You don't have a right to start all over. That's number one. Also, the burden of proof on a probation revocation is different. Generally, when you have a brand new case with no plea deal, the state of Texas has to prove that beyond the whole case, beyond a reasonable doubt. But here, the DA, the prosecutor, would only have to prove the revocation hearing by a preponderance of the evidence. In other words, tipping the scales, 51 to 49%. It's easier burden for the state to prove because you've already pled guilty. Finally, it's risky. Although it's risky, it's possible for a judge to rule that you did violate your probation, but still allow you to keep your freedom. We've had many hearings that go like this on occasion where we'll go up there, we'll actually have the hearing, and the judge will hear out the full facts of what happened and decide, okay, you know what? I'm not going to make you go to prison, but I am going to make you do these extra things, and I'm going to keep you on your probation. So how can a good lawyer help you on this? Well, a good attorney, number one, I always tell people if you hire a lawyer, that lawyer can help you begin to work on your probation revocation prior to the hearing, okay? Prior to maybe even you going to jail if you have an active warrant. So we at the Fulgham Law Firm, we've been able to resolve a number of these type of probation revocations with our clients being able to maintain their freedom without ever having to even go to a hearing before the judge. But I want you to understand this is so critical. If you're on straight probation, you have no right to a bond. you better make sure you have an attorney to help you with it, because if you go get arrested for it, the judge doesn't have to set a bond, all right? If you are on deferred adjudication and you have an active warrant, you do have a right to a bond, but your attorney has to go make the request. So the last thing you want to do is go turn yourself in up at the jail and not have a lawyer ready to be able to go and make that request for a bond to be set for you, okay? So a good attorney can negotiate with the prosecutor, the probation department, and the judge to look at the alleged violations. And people say, well, what do you mean? What are violations? Well, let me give you some examples. Failure to report, failure to pay your fines and your fees to the probation department. Maybe you picked up a new offense. Failure to complete your counseling or your classes that the courts made you do. Failure to complete community service. Maybe you failed a drug test. These are all examples of possible violations that still does not necessarily mean you're going to have to go to prison, but they can lead to a prison sentence if you're not fighting this revocation proceeding. So a good lawyer may be able to also negotiate with the judge to negotiate to keep your freedom in exchange for you doing more things. Now, let me tell you something. The probation department they have a policy called progressive sanctions, which means if you mess up on your probation, things don't get easier, they get harder. So I have some people call me all the time and say, well, hey, is there a way that I can just go back to the way things were before this new violation? No, I can pretty much guarantee you, if there are new violations that can be proven, in order to stay out of jail, they're going to make you do new things. But these are all areas that can be negotiated by your attorney. But beware, if you've been told by your probation officer that you have a warrant, make sure that you consult with an attorney before you turn yourself in. It's a lot harder to get things done sitting behind a jail cell relying upon family members or friends. All right, so listen, if you're facing a probation revocation in the North Texas area, it's critical that we get to the bottom of your situation. If you would like to have a free case consultation with the Fulgham Law Firm, contact us at 817-877-3030. We could pull up what's known as the Petition to Proceed to Adjudicate. This is a document where the state of Texas has to outline the specific things that you did that were wrong. We could begin to, if you decide you would like for us to help you, help formulate a defense and a plan of action of what needs to be done to try to help protect you on your probation revocation. Now, I promised you if you waited around to the end of this video, I'd give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Click the link below. We'll be happy to send it right over to you. I want to thank you for joining us here today. If you like what you heard, click or like our video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll continue to put out great content just like this. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you soon.